Okay, so we're diving into digital out-of-home advertising today.
DOOH.
Yeah,
Yeah.
DOOH. It feels like it's everywhere. You know, those big flashy billboards, the screens you see in like Ubers and taxis.
Even in those mall kiosks,
Yeah, it
everywhere.
really feels like it's everywhere we look these days. But I have to say, for something that everyone's talking about, DOH isn't exactly setting the advertising world on fire, is it?
Well, that's the interesting thing. The potential, it's definitely there.
Right.
I mean, the technology's gotten really sophisticated. The audience is huge,
But
but
it's like it's stuck.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like stuck in second gear or something.
it's having a bit of an identity crisis, don't you think? Is it
Yeah.
just like a really fancy billboard? Or is it trying to be like the next big thing in connected TV?
Yeah, and what's with that prediction we saw, that by 2028, DOOH ad spending in the U.S. could actually shrink. I mean, that doesn't exactly say future of advertising, does it?
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. You'd think combining the old school impact of billboards with the whole, hyper-targeted thing that digital advertising does so well would be a slam dunk.
It seems like a no-brainer, right? You get the captive eyeballs, but then you can really zero in on who you want to reach.
Win-win.
The technology is getting
Sure.
really good at understanding who's actually seeing these ads.
Exactly.
But there are some big roadblocks, some big ones.
Okay, so what's roadblock number one?
Well, I kind of think of it as this identity crisis we were talking about.
Okay.
The media buyers, the people who actually decide where the advertising money goes,
Right.
they're not quite sure what to make of DOH.
Yeah.
Is it a billboard? Is it TV? Is it like some weird hybrid? And that makes it really hard to measure how effective it is.
And if you can't measure it,
And in advertising, if you can't measure it, you can't justify spending on
you
it.
can't put a number on it. Yeah.
Right.
It's a non-starter. And we saw that firsthand, actually, with that whole thing with that CTV ad network trying to pass off these sidebar ads in bars as some kind of like super premium inventory. It was
Oh, yeah.
kind of outrageous.
It's like they're trying to have it both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just erodes trust,
For sure.
which is, that's everything in advertising. And that leads us right to roadblock number 2. The DOOH landscape is incredibly fragmented.
Okay, this is where I started to get a little lost, to be honest. All those acronyms were flying around, SSPs and DSPs. I felt like I needed a decoder ring or something. But my takeaway was that online advertising is kind of consolidated, right? You have your big players, and everyone knows who they are.
Right, exactly. Online advertising has its giants.
Right.
But DOH, not so much. It's dominated by a handful of major companies.
So it's like walking into a grocery store,
Yeah,
and there are only 5 brands of cereal on the shelf.
right.
You might find something you like, but it's not like you have a lot of choices. That's kind of what's happening with DOOH.
And that lack of competition,
Right.
it really stifles innovation.
Yeah, it's like, why bother innovating if you can just coast along
Exactly.
and rake in the cash?
If a few big players control the game, why change it?
And speaking of a few big players, that Jounce Media research you sent over, man, talk about a rabbit hole.
It is. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is.
Hmm.
Like, I felt like I was getting a crash course in, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes in the ad world that we never even think about.
Yeah, I mean, it can feel like a bit of a black box.
Totally.
And what Jounce found, it's pretty revealing. Basically, there are a small number of DOH companies that are just flooding the market with these ad requests, those bids
Right.
we
Right.
were talking about.
Bids.
It's not that they necessarily have more inventory.
Oh, interesting.
It's that they're really good at gaming the system.
So it's like not about the quality, it's about the
Yeah.
quantity.
Yeah.
So those people, shoving flyers in your face on the street,
Yeah.
you're more likely to just
Yeah, just take time.
take one to make them go away.
It's kind of like that, yeah.
Right.
Imagine one company sending out, say, 2 or 3 bids for a prime advertising spot.
Okay.
Another one's bombarding potential buyers with 40 bids
Oh, wow.
for a similar spot. Who do you think's going to win?
The 40 bids, for sure.
It's a numbers game.
Wow.
But that's not the whole story. That's just one piece of it.
Okay, so what's the rest of the story? What else is going on?
So, ad networks.
Ad networks, right?
This is where it gets even more interesting. These are the middlemen.
Okay.
They operate between the companies selling the ad space and the brands that are trying to buy it.
All right.
And what they do is they bundle together DOOH inventory
Okay.
and often mix it in with connected TV inventory.
So wait, hold on. So you could think you're buying an ad on, like, Hulu,
Right.
but it could end up on a billboard?
Potentially, yeah. Or on that screen at the gas pump.
Oh, wow. See, that feels...
And they're not always completely transparent about it.
Yeah, that feels a little
The
bit
buyers...
Yeah, a little shady. I mean, I get it. Everyone's trying to make money. But if I feel like I'm being misled, or I'm not really sure what I'm buying...
It creates this distrust and confusion.
Exactly.
Which makes people hesitant to really go all in.
Yeah, totally. It's like, it makes me want to just stick with what I know.
And that's a problem for DO.
Right, because it needs those advertisers to buy in.
Exactly. But it's not all bad news. Programmatic DOH, despite all of this, is growing.
Okay, so there's hope.
There is hope.
I like hope.
There are signs of progress.
So programmatic DOH, it's growing, but it's got some work to do.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, kind of like what? Growing pains.
Exactly.
So where are we seeing progress? Like, what's actually looking good?
Well, the good news is some companies are starting to address that transparency issue head on.
It's about time, right?
They're realizing that if they want advertisers to trust them, they got to be more upfront about, what they're actually selling.
Honesty is the best policy.
Right.
Makes sense to me. What else is looking up?
Content adjacency is another area where we're seeing some really interesting developments. Remember how we were talking about DOH trying to be more like TV?
Right, right.
Well, companies like AdExec are trying to bridge that gap. They're figuring out how to combine that really precise targeting that you get with CTV with the real-world impact of DOH.
Okay, so how does that work? Like, give me an example.
So imagine you're at a sports bar, right? You're watching the game highlights.
Okay.
The energy's high, and then boom, right when everyone's glued to the screen, an ad pops up for, say, a new energy drink or a sports betting app.
Okay.
It's about timing, and it's about relevance.
So it's like it actually makes sense in that moment.
Exactly.
It's not just some random ad that has nothing to do with what I'm doing.
It's all about context.
Right, right.
And it's only going to get more sophisticated. Like, imagine an ad for allergy medication that plays on those digital billboards in your neighborhood, but only when the pollen count is high.
Wow, that's next level.
Right.
Okay, so what about measuring all of this? I mean, can we actually prove that DOH works?
That's the million-dollar question, and the answer is it's getting a lot easier to do that. Real-time data and analytics are becoming so much more powerful. We're not just talking about estimating how many people might have seen your ad. We're talking about knowing, like, did they actually go into your store after they saw that ad?
Wow.
Did they make a purchase online? That kind of data is incredibly valuable.
So big picture, where do you see DOH going? Is it going to be this huge part of our digital lives, or is it going to fizzle out?
I'm optimistic, I really am. I think DOH has the potential to be a really big deal. But it all comes down to trust and transparency. Can these companies be honest with advertisers? Can they deliver on their promises? If they can, I think we're going to see amazing things from DOH. And that is our deep dive on DOH. What a wild world it is.
It really is, and it's only getting wilder. So will DOH weave its way into the fabric of our digital lives, or will it, kind of fade into the background? That's for you to decide. This has been a really fascinating deep dive. Thanks for walking us through all of it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Until next time.